Breaking news tonight, Bob Saget's cause of death revealed. His family saying in a statement, the authorities have determined that Bob passed from head trauma. They've concluded that he accidentally hit the back of his head on something, thought nothing of it, and went to sleep. No drugs or alcohol were involved. Now, Saget was found dead in Orlando, Florida, in a hotel room there after performing a 2-hour comedy set on January 9th. The family saying that they had been overwhelmed by the outpouring of love since Saget's passing, and going on to say, and I quote here, now that we have the final conclusions from the authorities' investigation, we felt it only proper that the fans hear those conclusions directly from us. Let's discuss this now. CNN's chief medical correspondent, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, joins us. Sanjay, thanks so much. Help us understand, what kind of head trauma would this be?
Well, it sounds like, you know, from what they're saying there, is that this was probably a bleed that occurred on top of the brain. Subdural hematoma is one of the most common sort of scenarios here, and this is tough to talk about, Don. It's tough to be so clinical about this, but you can see what's happening there. There is a blood collection in this scenario that's on top of the brain, pushing on the brain. And the thing, Don, about the brain, unlike any other organ in the body, it's obviously encased in hard skulls, so it has nowhere to go if it has this kind of pressure on it. You get pressure on the brain stem, and then ultimately someone loses consciousness and they lose their ability to breathe on their own, and they subsequently die. It's really sad, you know, and he was alone, it sounds like. It may have been a pretty significant blow to the head, maybe, you know, just fall in the bathroom or on the headboard of your bed or something like that. You don't think anything of it. Small veins can tear as a result of that blow, and blood can start to leak. And over a few hours, it can accumulate. Someone may lose consciousness, and all the things I just mentioned sort of transpire. So, yeah. Sad scenario, but it sounds like that's what the family's sort of describing here.
Being in a room that you're not familiar with, you know, the bathroom in the middle of the night or something, you trip and hit something and just don't think about it, and you go right back to bed. And just like hitting your headboard, right, with your bed, if you're laying back and you hit the headboard, that's not hard enough to cause that, is it?
I wouldn't think so. No, I mean, there's a couple things, you know, just from a trauma neurosurgery standpoint, you know, I do want to know if someone was on blood thinners, for example. Someone's on blood thinners, that may make them more likely to bleed with a less significant blow. But I think this was probably a pretty significant hit to the head. But, you know, again, as you mentioned, that really hurt. I maybe fell, slipped, even hit the back of my head. That really hurt, but I didn't lose consciousness. I feel okay. If someone were around and they were saying, hey, look, do you have a headache? Is that headache worsening? The person appears confused. They're slurring their speech. They're becoming nauseated or even vomiting, things like that. Those would all be indicators that something is happening, that you obviously should go get checked out quickly. But again, being alone, not being certain just how significant a blow to the head did I just take, I'm just going to go to bed, that's, again, sad. But it sounds like what happened.
Is it common, Sanjay? Does this happen a lot? We don't hear about it because it's not a celebrity?
Yes, I think it's far more common than people realize. These types of subdural, these types of blood collections on the brain, they can occur in a very acute, sudden way, like it sounds like with Bob Saget. They can be sort of slower. The blood can be slower accumulate over days and weeks, and they can even be chronic. Sometimes, you know, we have older patients. People are quite old. They may have hit their head on the frame of the car as they're getting inside. And again, they think, oh, that hurt. They don't think anything of it. And then a couple of weeks later, they start to have symptoms. So when you look at all those categories of those types of brain bleeds, they're not uncommon. But the situation that seems to have happened with Bob Saget, that's, you know, that I don't want to suggest that everyone who hits their head should immediately go get a CAT scan. Most do not need that, obviously. But if it's a significant blow, if you're on blood thinners, he was 65, not old, but your brain does tend to shrink a bit as you get older, so there's more room for that blood to accumulate. And again, those symptoms, worsening headaches, confusion, nausea, vomiting, slurring of speech, things like that that are unusual, you should definitely go get that checked out.
You're right. It's really sad. Thank you, Sanjay. I appreciate you joining us.